What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Dadskills. So this week I attempted to make some paper rings. I got this idea of Sobrano Woodcrafts. I'll link his video down below, which I got this idea from, and I was super excited to try it, and I failed miserably. So I won't say that, well, I did fail miserably, but I did learn something out of it. So this first one right here was a reasonable success. I'll give it my first go. But these other two right here failed miserably. Now I'll give you an explanation of why this one worked and why these two failed. So this one right here, what I did was I super glued each layer down as I formed it across my piece of, I think it was just plastic that I was using. I super glued each layer down as I went, and then sort of gave it a few layers on top of that with just plain old super glue, and then sanded it down from there. Now that works reasonably well, and I probably could get it a little bit smoother and shinier if I sort of spent a little bit more time on sanding it down and making it look nice. But I wanted to give it a couple more goes and to try something different, and that's where these two failures come into effect. Now the reason why these two have failed was because what I did was just glue one end of the bit of paper I was using. I was using about 30 to 40 centimeters worth long of paper, and I just glue one end, glue it onto itself, and then wrap it around and then glue it shut again. Now I did that for about 3 or 4 sheets per ring, and then just sort of dropped super glue around the top of it, and then hoped that it just sort of seeped its way right through. So I did one side, so I'd super glue the top, roll it over when it's dry, and then super glue the other side, and I just did that for a few days in a row. And then what I decided to do was just sort of layer it really lightly a couple of times a day, and then sort of sand it down at the end. And I was really hoping that it would work, but it didn't. It failed. I was really hoping that I could keep these surfaces really sort of nice and just keep them the way they were when I sanded it down, but that just failed because the way it worked when I flooded the rings was that there was all these ripples and waves and all that kind of stuff within the ring itself, and when I sanded it down to get it all one even surface, it took the top off the ridges and rises and brought it down to paper, and then sort of just ate away at the layers as I went, just to try and get a flat surface to use. Now I think if I was using anything else but paper, or I really wanted that sort of stressed and worn look of the paper, then these would be perfect. But what I was going for didn't really work out for me. So it's one thing I'd change. I'd take a little bit more time and sort of work my way across each bit of paper. Yes, it would be more time consuming, but we know it works on the smaller diameter ring. Sanding these down wasn't too bad. Pretty much I just used no power tools at all. It was just me, sandpaper and super glue. So I know that one works, one way failed. If I was using sort of different type of material, say like a veneer or something like that, it may work the flooding kind of way, but I don't know. Now they're kind of a little bit malleable. I think if it got a few more coats of super glue, or maybe an epoxy or something to just rigid it up, it might sort of sit a little bit better, or you could probably just use it in a soft ring. So I'm not going to say this is a super complete failure. I will say it was very much a learning curve. Obviously these two were two different types of paper, and they glued differently and sat differently, and the super glue reacted a lot differently to each of them. And so I won't say it was a super complete failure, but this week's Dadskills wasn't really a success either. But at least I know now, and you know now, that making a ring out of paper and super glue is achievable. But if you do want to check out a super awesome ring that Zebrano Woodcrafting did make, his link will be down below. His ring turned out way better than mine, and definitely worth looking at if you want to see someone a lot better than me make a paper ring that looks a hell of a lot better than these. But that'll do for me for this week. So next week, my dad skill that I'm going to try and achieve is juggling 5 balls. So I do know already how to roughly juggle 3. We'll see if I can actually juggle still. It's been a few years, but I'll just start off by the basics and work our way up, and I'll try and get to juggling 5 balls by the end of the week. But I'll bring you guys along, same as always, and I'll see you at the end of next week. Till next time, thanks guys.